Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sociology Simplified. Today, we are covering this topic of social deviance. Now, let's just jump directly into the topic. So, let us just understand what is social deviance, okay? And before jumping into social deviance, we need to understand what is basically deviance. And deviance, it involves the violation of group, let me take a pen, violation of group's norms, which may or may not be formalized into law. So that clearly not necessarily formalized into law or are laws in the society, but they are group norms. So that means it has acceptance, a social acceptance. It is comprehensive concept that includes not only criminal behavior but also many action not subject to prosecution. All right. So the area that comes under the domain of deviance, is much wider. Okay. Some of the criminal behavior, or some of the behavior which considered by law as crime, can be part of the deviance. Also, there can be some behavior which might not be considered as criminal behavior, but a behavior which is not socially accepted, or it's a violation of group's norms, then it is also part of this term deviance. All right. The public official who takes bribe. So now they have tried to substantiate with the example. What is this example? The public official who takes a bribe has defined social norm, but also as a high school student who refused to sit in an assigned seats and cuts off class, of course. So public official who takes bribe is also comes under a behavior which is legally not right, right? But there is this behavior of a school student when he refuses to sit on an assigned seat, right? That is also comes under the domain of deviance. So both of these things are deviance, whereas one is legally also considered as wrong behavior, other one does not come or fall into the category of legal, but they both are falling into the category of deviance. Okay, so deviance from norms is not always negative, right? So this is also very important. This is also the entire side of deviance. So, deviance from the norm is not always negative. Why? Because there might be social groups which has norms which are not uh, you know modern enough that they are accepted by everyone, right? They are backward in the nature, and there might be chances that the people with their rational mindset not adhere to those normative system. So they're not always negative, because it's good to be forwarding, it's good to moving ahead, but uh, they're not negative in that sense. So deviance can be understood only within its social context. So you need to understand the context in which we are saying that some behavior is falling under the category of deviant. Now, again, there is an example, and this example is not of two different context. It is of the one context, and how that context have different meaning. It is telling you that. So there is a nude photograph of a woman, okay? When the photograph of a nude woman or a man is perfectly appropriate in an art museum. So there are lots of artists who portray, who use, or who, sketch a lot of portraits of nude human bodies, could be of men and women, right? So if it is by a painter, a famous painter, it's in the art museum, everybody is going to appreciate it. It is perfectly appropriate because it's a piece of art. So people and the visitor will going to presume that it's a piece of art. But when you put that photograph in a school classroom, the context changed, right? The moment you change the environment, the moment you change the room setting, the context change. Here you could not put a nude photograph of a men and women in an elementary school classroom because they're not supposed to be there. Socially, the context changed, right? And that is why it is considered inappropriate here. Whereas in the art museum, it was considered as appropriate. So, deviance is only understood in the context of social, in the social context, right? So in elementary social school classroom, it could be considered as a negative kind of a deviant behavior. But whereas in a art museum, it was appropriate. So a lot of people has tried to simplify it by, studying it from their own perspective. There is one statement by Young and Mack. They say that no norm is always obeyed, no individual always conforms to every set of expectations. Hence, deviance, that is the act of going against the rules or the norm, is there everywhere. Okay? It's not possible always for humans and for social animals to adhere to norms always and every time. There might be chances where they found the rationality of not adhering to the normative system and they probably will not conform to the set expectations, right? So, going against the rule is is a very evident and a very journal phenomena. It happens most of the time, almost on everyday basis, probably in some of the context. Deviant behavior. Now, there are some of the example like immorality, right? Dishonesty, you lie about something. For example, in a classroom, if you're not coming, sometimes you give the that I was not well. Even though if you have some other work, you did not want to express it, then you take give the example of that I was not well. So that's dishonesty, but that's also deviant because you're not getting punishment for it, right? Betray, um, burglary, uh, corruption, cunningness, sickness, sneakiness, wickedness, gambling, drunkenness. So these are some of the things that behavior go along with the, when you're not conforming to the mores and the normative system. So these are some of the examples. And let's move ahead. There are some definitions. I have taken two definitions of deviant behavior. Robert Bell, he said the possibly the simplest and the most common definition of deviance is a statistical one. That is, defining anything as deviant that varies too far from the average in the society. Right? So, what is the average in the society? Average is something which is common, something which is general, something which people usually, on the basis of that, predict about the society. So, when the behavior is very, it's not same and it's very far from that normal behavior, then that behavior comes into category of deviance, right? So in statistics we study about these things, we study about what is an average. If you're far from the average, that's a that's probably a problematic thing. And if you're again uh, if you're going to the negative side, if you're going to the far side, but if you're in the mid between, like a medium, then it is fine. But if you're going far from those middle terms or middle numbers, then it is a problematic thing. This problematic things he's trying to analyze. He's trying to draw the analogy with the deviant behavior, right? So deviance is a deviation from the accepted patterns, ideas, norm of the society. Normal is the average. So what is normal? That's the average. So when you are taking normal is an average, and when someone is behaving against that normal or not according to that normal, then that's a deviance. So deviation from the accepted patterns, ideas, and norm of the society, that is deviance, right? That is a very interesting definition by Robert R. Bell. Now we'll move to the next definition by Albert K. Cohen. And he said, we define deviant behavior as a behavior which violates institutionalization expectations, that is, expectations which are shared, recognized as legitimate within the social system. So these are the expectations. These are the shared expectation. These are recognized within a social system. So when you violate these institutionalized expectation, that behavior is come under the category of deviant behavior. So thus deviant behavior deviates from the social standard, socially accepted behavior and pattern. So there's a deviation. Definitely you're moving away from what is accepted in the society. Now let's move something further. So now, what are the characteristics of deviance? To understand better about deviance, we need to understand what are the characteristics. So, deviance varies according to the cultural norm. Obviously, in one society, there are certain cultures norms according to which a certain system is okay to perform, certain tasks are not okay to perform. But when you change that culture, the norms change, and when the norms change, the the judgment criteria for that same behavior also change. So no thought and action inherently deviant, right? It becomes deviant only in relation to the particular norm, because norms vary from place to place and deviance also varies. But for example, in Indian society, something is very unacceptable. That something is acceptable in a Western society. Let's example say PDA, right? Public display of affection is not very acceptable thing in India, but it is an acceptable thing in the West. So it changed, right? In India, if you're performing a PDA or people are doing PDAs, then that's a deviant behavior kind of, and it's legally also sometimes considered as not right if it is putting others into the threat domain. Now, second is people become deviant as other define them that way, right? So these are socially developed ideas, whether something is deviant, something is, not deviant. So how others are defining it, and this definition is getting stronger and stronger as the more generation gives it an acceptance. So everyone occasionally violates cultural norms, even to the extent of breaking the law, right? But then who defines the law? When it comes to the deviance, it's the society that defines the behavior. So people become deviant as others define them that way, right? So if the society change, people mindset change, that behavior became okay. For example, sati, right? Sati now is not okay. In fact, it took legal context to save that, but it is not right, right? Deviance from social norms. Individuals do not strictly conform to the ideals, norms imposed by their culture. Mostly it happens. There are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of problems when there is a modernity, there's a force of modernity, and you're trying to balance it out with your traditional system. There has to be a disbalance between the two. When there is a disbalance, individuals are not very strict. They try to become flexible with the ideals and the norms in the society. So deviance also, change, and the new forms of deviance arise. So it's very important that we understand the context in which we are talking, the time in which we are talking about the things, and the place we are talking in about the context. So social norms might be resulting into deviant 2, 3 years back, but it is not a deviance anymore. For example, same-sex couples. Before the scrapping of the Article 377, we used to believe that this is completely wrong. They can't have the right as the normal individual in the citizen of this country have. But then when they scrapped the Article 377, they became acceptable groups in the society. Then that behavior changed, right? That context changed. So it is very important that we understand that. Personal as well as social, the deviant behavior is personal because it's, to an extent, a personal motivation behind any action. And social behavior and social deviance is characteristics of group behavior as well. When it comes to the term social, mostly that is related to more than two individual, which is forming a group, and there are some interaction taking place, and with the objective within the mind. So it is the characteristics of a group behavior. Now let's move ahead. What are the causes that facilitating deviance, right? H.M. Johnson tried to list it out that there are some factors that leads to deviance. What are these factors? Weak sanctions. So the weaker the sanctions are, the easier for people to deviate themselves from the social norms. And when they deviate from the social norm, that is resulting into deviant behavior. So the more stricter you are, people will, not try to violate them. But the more weaker sanctions will be implemented, then they will deviate. So sanctions refers to reward or punishment used to establish social control and to enforce the norms in the society, right? If you're conforming to the normative system, then obviously you are rewarded. You're not conforming, then obviously you will get punishment, right? An individual might throw you out of the group. So let's just say intercaste marriages. A lot of couple wants to do intercaste marriages, and they run away, and they get the police protection, they get the legal confirmation, but society is not ready to allow them. Then they might be outcast. They might be thrown out of the society. So that's actually what it does. So you're behaving the behavior is a deviant behavior. It is because of the weaker section. Now poor enforcement. When you're poorly enforcing the normative system, then it also leads to people often doing the deviant behavior. So it has to be strongly enforced if you want to maintain that social norm, over a period of time. Now, unjust and corrupt enforcement. So it happens. It happens a lot of time that people who supposed to adhere or ask others to adhere to it. Mostly it happens in the family. For example, the head of the family is the one who defines the rule of the family, right? We will do this and we will not do that. Now, if that person is biased towards someone, it's unjust, right, for others. So you are biased towards a son, and not, and then you're sending your son to the school every day, but you're not sending your daughter to the school every day. Then that kind of it is discriminatory. So there is unjust and there is a biasness in the enforcement, right? Some of the rules are okay for boys that they go out at night, but then when it comes to the women, that is not right. So when women does it, it became deviant. When men does it, it became normal, right? Going out at night. Now, fourth is subcultural support of deviance. Different groups have different idea of permissible behavior, right? What is not conforming outside becomes conforming in the group. So again, the time and context and the place, right? And the group that we belongs to, according to them, it changes. So, like I give the example of PDAs. Also, you take the example of, let's just say something is acceptable in Bharat, but when you go to uh, even more backward countries, even more underdeveloped countries, that something will be not will be seen as something very out of their society. They will be like uh, could not be believing it. For example, women driving, right? So even in the Middle East, women were not allowed to drive, right? So if they see some women driving, it is very shocking for them because according to their system, it is a deviant behavior, right? It is legally not permissible in some of the countries, but for some it's a deviant behavior. Women supposed not to drive, right? So confirming non-conformity and conformity again changes with the context and the place. Sentiments of loyalty of deviant group. So when someone is when someone is doing a deviant behavior, and you're a part of that group, then it is very difficult to betray the co-members of that group, and they suffer the disapproval and the rejection, right? For example, you're a friend to someone who wants to have a girlfriend and wants to marry that girlfriend, but this girlfriend is from the same group. Then you're supporting this person, but that behavior is a deviant behavior according to society. Then you will also suffer, right? Because you were the co-members, and you need to get suffered because of the disapproval and the rejection from the society. So sentiment of loyalty of the deviant group, it's also important, point. Now that's all for the deviant. I hope you understand. Thank you so much, and please like, share, and subscribe.